The movie opens with video footage of Navy SEALs enduring their brutal training.
Come back to the light.
I met my limit, so...
Just find an excuse to win.
On a military base somewhere in the Middle East, Navy SEALs Lieutenant Michael Murphy and Gunner's mate Second Class Danny Dietz go for an early morning run, racing each other around the base. Meanwhile, sonar technician Second Class Matthew Axelson is talking to his wife in bed. They soon meet up with the rest of the SEAL team, including Hospital Corpsman First Class Marcus Luttrell, when they are notified by Lieutenant Commander Eric Christensen that their mission Red Wing is a go at 1800. Later the team go over their upcoming mission. Their target is Ahmad Shah, local Taliban warlord in the Korangal Valley responsible for the deaths of several Marines and the villagers suspected of helping them, along with his second, Tarek. The strike team will consist of Axelson on point, Murphy as second, Dietz on comms, and Luttrell bringing up the rear as their medic. Meanwhile, we see Shah and Tarek targeting villagers in the Korangal Valley, invading their homes and dragging them outside where they are decapitated. Back at base, the team is notified that Shah can be identified by his lack of ear lobes, and once contact is made, use of deadly force is authorized. After going over the details of their mission, the guys spend the rest of their time relaxing and chatting away. Later, the entire platoon gathers together as their newcomer machinist, mate Shane Patton, has his presentation, which turns out to be a dance, which would be frowned upon normally, but that's the military, so we understand. The SEALs then gear up along with some Marines for the mission ahead, and are soon picked up by choppers and flown to their drop spot. They arrive at the location in the dead of night, and the strike team rappels down, all wearing night vision, secure their area, and confirm their communications with the forward operating base JBAD. The team trek through the dark until morning, confirming with base the point along their journey. The team continues on through the dense forest until they get to a mountain overlooking the Korangal Valley and try to call in their checkpoint, but the terrain is disrupting the comms. They eventually manage to call in their location, and Christensen gets phase 2 of his operation underway. The village below them is swarming with armed men, so Murphy decides to move to another mountain peak nearby to get a better viewpoint. The team make it to the closer mountain peak and take up defensive positions. Murphy uses a long-range scope and identifies Shah among a large group of men, and Luttrell confirms it. He is unable to make a shot from that distance, so they must push further in, but they are unable to move as Dietz is having an issue getting a connection to confirm their sighting of Shah. They then decide to leave Axelson on surveillance and pull back with Dietz to try and get a connection to command. Axelson manages to identify Tarek, but is still unable to get a connection back to base, so the team decide to dig in until a few hours later when they find higher ground to make comms. A few minutes in, the silence of the forest is broken by the sound of domesticated goats, which unfortunately stop right next to the SEALs' hiding spot, putting them on edge. To make things worse, the goat herders, an old man and 2 young men, come into view, and the SEALs all train their guns on them, hoping they will just pass by. The men come closer and closer to their hiding spot. Then, like a splash of bad luck, one steps on Luttrell's foot, giving away their location and forcing the SEALs to grab everyone and put them in zip ties. Murphy finds a walkie-talkie on the old man, suspecting he is communicating with the Taliban. Dietz tries again to get through to JBAD, but they still have no luck. Murphy uses his unsecured SAT phone and gets through to the sergeant on duty asking to be connected to Christensen. The call is connected to Bagram Air Base, and Patton answers and rushes to go get Christensen, but the call drops just as Christensen gets on the phone. He knows Murphy shouldn't be calling on a SAT phone and starts working to figure out what is going on. Murphy tries again, but with no success, and one of the boys tries running away until Axelson grabs him. Running out of time, Murphy knows they only have 3 options: release them and retreat, where they would be found within an hour, tie them up and retreat, and they would die or be eaten, or terminate and continue on. Axelson and Dietz are all for terminating the compromise, but Luttrell is looking at the fallout of their actions. Axelson reminds him that Shah has killed 20 of their Marines, and if their mission fails, 20 more will fall. He understands the rules of engagement, but at this point he only cares about the safety of his team and doesn't want to see their decapitated heads on the internet. They continue arguing about whether the people in front of them are soldiers or just unarmed civilians, until Murphy puts a stop to the bickering. His orders are to release their hostages, make the peak of the hill so Dietz can get comms up and call for extraction. Meanwhile, Christensen is trying but failing to get a connection back to the SEAL team. Murphy frees the 3 hostages, and the team begin ascending the mountain, but the way one of the boys runs off makes it clear the Taliban will soon learn of their presence. During the trek, Axelson slips and sprains his ankle, but he pushes on and they soon get to the peak and try again to make comms, but it's no use. So Murphy decides they will fall back into the tree line, and if they're unable to make comms by sundown, they will start heading back to base on foot. Back at J-Bad, Christensen is getting more impatient and concerned as the team has now missed multiple windows to make comms. He contacts his superior at Bagram Air Base, informing him of the comms issue with their team, but the superior doesn't see an issue and dismisses his concerns. The SEAL team take up positions within the trees, but an air of tension hangs over them. Axelson is first to spot movement a few hundred meters in front of them, and the rest of the team soon catches on. Murphy decides to push forward to do recon on the surrounding area, only to see a small army of armed men standing on a ridge a good distance away, and he returns informing the team they are about to get contact. But the others already know this as they detect more movement on the scopes. Everyone locks in, and Luttrell is first to catch a target clean on his scope and drop him. The gunfight soon kicks off, and the SEALs begin to move positions rapidly while covering each other's retreat, striking their targets precisely. All is going well for the first few minutes until Dietz tries calling in for evac, and a bullet hits his fingers and Axelson is grazed on the shoulder. And this brief moment of distraction allows the Taliban to rush their location, forcing them into a brief scuffle, but they manage to eliminate all the threats. The Taliban, though, have mounted a machine gun nearby and begin to pepper their cover with bullets. Murphy orders the team to push to the right, but as he stands to change cover, he takes a bullet to the stomach. Everyone still tries to retreat under gunfire, and Axelson takes a bullet to the leg while Luttrell is hit in the buttocks. The Taliban continue to push the SEALs back, even attacking with RPGs. The guys continue to take more injuries while retreating, until their backs are against a cliff. Left without a choice, the SEALs all jump as RPGs explode around them, landing hard on the rocks below and taking some brutal injuries during their fall. Somehow, all four are still alive, barely, and slowly recover, retrieve their weapons and pull themselves to cover. The brief moment of silence is shattered when Murphy takes a round to the foot, and the Taliban continue their assault from the cliff's edge. The guys return fire, and Dietz takes another round to the back but continues to fight. The Taliban have made their way to their location, so the SEALs begin to retreat, but Dietz is having trouble breathing as a round has punctured his lungs. He takes another round and falls, so Luttrell drags him along while he fires to cover their retreat. The team find themselves cover, and they drag Dietz with them, and for a brief moment they get to catch their breaths. Dietz is looking really bad, but Luttrell tries to talk to him to keep him from going into shock and uses dirt to stop his leg wound. Murphy's stomach wound isn't faring much better, but Luttrell also packs it with dirt. Dietz loses it and begins to yell loudly despite his buddies trying to calm him down, and soon gunshots begin to ring out on their position. Their backs are against another cliff edge, but they have no time to deliberate, so Axelson throws a smoke grenade for cover before jumping. Luttrell throws Dietz over his shoulder, but Dietz takes another bullet and Luttrell falls over without him. The fall is another brutal one with multiple injuries for the three. Meanwhile, Dietz is surrounded by fighters. The three barely recover when an RPG hits their position and more bullets begin to fly by them. Axelson learns Dietz was left behind and wants to go get him, but the others are forced to pull him to cover. Up top, the fighters strip Dietz of his gear and begin to videotape him while he is still alive. The three down below gather themselves and catch their breaths before deciding to push back on the fighters to try and grab Dietz. They begin to move under the heavy gunfire, but two RPG blasts disorient them, and they get pinned down once more by gunfire. Luttrell tells them they have to find another way, so Murphy decides to get up a high rock and use his SAT phone to make the call. Luttrell knows this would mean his death and tries talking him out of it, but Murphy hands him his spare magazines. Luttrell tells Murphy he is sorry, but Murphy tells him there is nothing to be sorry for.
I am the Reaper.
He grabs his rifle, so the SEALs begin to lay down gunfire with RPGs raining down on them, but still managing to kill a few Taliban. Murphy braves the bullets and blasts, constantly pushing towards the rock. Luttrell loses sight of one of his targets that manages to push on them, bullets flying inches from their heads. Murphy finally reaches the large rock, and the Taliban start making their way in his direction. He manages to get through to J-Bad using his SAT phone, using the last of his strength to request air support, all while bullets start tagging his body. At the top of the cliff, Dietz takes his last breath before Tarek ends his life. Murphy gathers himself and rises to his feet, but bullets bring him to his knees, and he dies there on the rock. J-Bad has successfully received his transmission, and Christensen loads up the rest of the SEALs and choppers and begins heading his way. Murphy's sacrifice has bought Axelson and Luttrell a short moment of relief. Axelson asks for Murphy, but Luttrell cannot give him an answer. Axelson has been hit in the head, but he and Luttrell try to keep their hopes up. If he should die, he wants Luttrell to tell his wife how much he loves her and that he died with his brothers. Luttrell tells him he will survive, but just then another RPG hits, sending them scrambling for cover. The two end up getting split up after the blast, and Tarek and his men are heading their direction. Like a gift from God, Christensen and the SEALs arrive at that moment and prepare to drop. The SEALs drop their ropes, but suddenly an RPG hits their chopper, destroying it. The other chopper is forced to take off, despite the SEALs on board demanding that the pilots land. The shock of losing their only way out gets to Axelson, who runs straight into the Taliban and ends up getting shot. He manages to take out his attackers. He painfully reloads his gun, slowly losing strength, and soon finds himself surrounded by fighters. He lets off shots until he runs out of bullets. Then, with his back against a tree, he takes his last breaths until a bullet tags him in the head. Luttrell is still calling for Axelson when an RPG explodes right next to him, sending him tumbling over some rocks. The Taliban led by Tarek come to finish him off, but Luttrell hides underneath a rock. Just then Apache helicopters pass overhead, forcing the fighters to retreat, but they see no sign of the SEALs and soon pull back themselves. Luttrell stays at his position and soon passes out. A few minutes later he wakes, painfully pulling shrapnel from his leg. He grabs his rifle and manages to get on his feet, pulling his injured body behind his strong will. Every so often he checks his six, using the gun as a crutch for his leg until he gets to a river and just dives in to refresh himself. He is drinking when he is surprised by some local men and pulls his grenade, warning them to stay back, but the men seem to be trying to calm him down. The Taliban's voices soon begin to echo in the distance, so one of the men, Muhammad Ghalab, offers him a helping hand. Luttrell is confused, but as the voices grow closer, he takes Muhammad's hand and they help him back to their village and into the man's home. Luttrell pulls out a map and Muhammad points to where they are, but one of the men starts to argue, giving Luttrell a dirty look. Luttrell pulls his grenade again, threatening to blow them all up if the man makes a move against him, but Muhammad manages to calm the situation down. Luttrell then hands Muhammad a marked map, begging him to bring it to the Americans nearby, and he hands it off to an old man. Meanwhile, Tarek and his men are tracking Luttrell's blood splatter, which leads them directly to the village. Muhammad steps out to talk with the men, but Tarek attacks him, and his men enter his home and drag Luttrell out. They drag him struggling over to a log to execute him, and Tarek pulls a machete threatening to send his head to his comrades. But before he can strike, Muhammad lets off shots, as he and other men hold the Taliban at gunpoint. He demands that Tarek leave his village and his guest, so Tarek threatens to wipe out the entire village before leaving with his men. They bring Luttrell back inside the home where he asks Muhammad's son to get him a knife, but the confused boy brings him a duck. Muhammad eventually brings him a knife which he uses to cut his clothes from his body and remove the rest of the shrapnel left in his leg, including a massive chunk from his thigh, before passing out from the pain. While he sleeps, Muhammad cleans his wounds and gives him a change of clothes. The next morning, Muhammad and his men stand guard. Meanwhile, Shah is mobilizing an army of men to attack the village. Luttrell soon wakes, and Muhammad brings him water and food which he hungrily eats. He wonders why Muhammad would help him when an RPG hits the house. Shah and his men have launched their attack on the village with Muhammad and his men fighting back. Luttrell's message finally gets to the nearby base, and a team of rangers are soon deployed. Muhammad and his son help Luttrell from the house and into another building while fending off Tariq, who is aiming directly for them. The village is slowly being overrun, and Muhammad runs out of ammunition as Tariq begins closing in on him. A Taliban fighter stumbles upon Luttrell and attacks Muhammad's son when he tries to defend him. Just as Muhammad is about to be cornered by Tariq, he lunges at him and the two get into a tussle, but Muhammad kills Tariq with his own gun. The Taliban inside the home begins to attack Luttrell brutally and is about to strangle him out when Muhammad's son hands him a knife and Luttrell finishes him off. The Taliban fighters are still pushing on the village in their numbers, but in the middle of their slaughter, the Rangers arrive in their choppers and begin to lay down fire, and along with a gunship as support, they decimate the Taliban numbers and send the survivors running to the hills. The Rangers land and secure the location, and the residents lead them to Luttrell. The Rangers help him out, but Luttrell takes time to stop and tearfully thanks Muhammad for saving his life, and Muhammad's son hugs him. Luttrell bursts into tears as he lies there in the chopper, just grateful to be alive, and soon passes out. He is rushed into surgery where he almost dies, but the doctors manage to resuscitate him. The film ends showing footage of the real Luttrell, Christensen, and all the men that lost their lives during Operation Red Wing. Thanks for watching. If you had a good time, go ahead and hit that like button, drop a comment, and of course, subscribe for more recaps just like this. And hey, don't click away just yet. YouTube thinks you'll love one of these two videos popping up right here, so check them out next.